Thexlar stood in the great mapping hall, staring at the holographic display that filled the entire chamber. The map showed thousands of star systems glowing like fireflies in the darkness. Trade routes connected them in webs of light. Every civilization had its place. Every planet was marked. Every region had a name except one. Her 4 legs carried her closer to the void in the map. It was huge, covering what should be hundreds of star systems. But there was nothing. No coordinates. No information. Just empty space with a simple warning in every known language. Human territory. No entry. Thexlar was Krelthian, an insect-like species known for their love of exploring and mapping. She had spent 30 years charting unknown regions of space. She had mapped dangerous asteroid fields and violent star clusters. But this blank space bothered her more than anything she had ever seen. Humans existed. Everyone knew that. They traded with other species. They sent diplomats to the Galactic Council. Their ships passed through neutral space regularly, but no alien had ever entered their territory. Not once in 200 years. More than that, no one who tried to enter had ever come back. Thexlar had researched every recorded attempt. 43 ships over 2 centuries. Exploration vessels, science probes, even military scouts. All disappeared. Some sent brief distress signals before going silent. Others simply vanished without a trace. The humans never explained. They never apologized. They just reinforced the same message, stay out. Her colleagues thought she was obsessed. Maybe she was. But Thexlar could not accept a blank space on any map. It went against everything her species believed in. Knowledge was sacred. Mysteries existed to be solved. She had tried official channels first. She submitted a formal request to the Cartography Institute Council, asking for funding to lead a diplomatic expedition into human space. The council rejected her proposal within hours. Too dangerous, they said. The Treaty of Terra guaranteed humanity complete privacy. No questions asked. But Thexlar noticed something in the data that others missed. The ships that disappeared did not vanish randomly. They followed a pattern. Each one was intercepted in a specific sequence, as if being systematically removed by something watching the borders. The distress signals all cut off in the same strange way, not with equipment failure, but as if the ships themselves stopped existing. She needed answers. So she decided to find them herself. The diplomatic reception was held in a grand hall on the neutral station of Kelthros Prime. Representatives from dozens of species mingled, discussing trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Thexlar spotted the human delegation across the room. They looked unremarkable. Bipedal mammals, shorter than most species, with soft skin and no natural armor. They seemed friendly enough, smiling and chatting with other delegates. But Thexlar had learned that humans were good at hiding their true feelings. She approached Ambassador Hieren Song, a human woman known for being approachable and diplomatic. Hieren greeted her warmly, offering the traditional Krelthian gesture of respect. Thexlar decided to be direct. Ambassador, I must ask you something. Why does your territory remain unmapped? Every species shares basic navigation data, but your space is completely blank on our charts. Hieren's smile did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. It was quick, barely noticeable. Fear, maybe. Or warning. We value our privacy, cartographer. Surely your people understand the need for boundaries. Privacy does not require complete erasure. Thexlar pressed. Other species maintain closed borders, but they still appear on maps. Your region is not just restricted, it is blank. Why? The warmth left Hieren's face. Her voice remained polite, but it carried an edge now. Because some boundaries must be absolute. The blank space on your map is not a mistake, cartographer. It is a warning. I strongly advise you to respect it. Before Thexlar could respond, Hieren excused herself and moved to another group of delegates. The conversation was over, but it had told Thexlar everything she needed to know. The humans were hiding something important enough to maintain absolute secrecy for 200 years. That night, Thexlar made her decision. She would go there herself. She would cross the human border and discover what lay beyond. She used her savings to hire a small ship called the Cartographer's Hope. She recruited a crew of 3. A Varelian pilot who liked adventure, a Cylonian engineer curious about human technology, and a Taraxian navigator who claimed to have partial charts of the border regions. They filed a false flight plan claiming to survey distant asteroids, then changed course toward human space. For 3 days, they traveled without incident. The stars looked normal. Space behaved as it should. There was no sign of danger. Then they crossed the border. Immediately, their instruments began acting strange. Navigation systems showed conflicting readings. Communication arrays picked up interference on channels that should be empty. The Taraxian navigator's chart suddenly made no sense, as if the space itself had changed. "Something is wrong," the Cylonian engineer said, his energy form flickering with concern. "These readings do not match any known phenomenon." Before Thexlar could respond, their sensors detected a ship approaching at incredible speed. It appeared on their screens like a ghost, a sleek, dark vessel that should not exist according to their charts. A human voice crackled over their communication system. It was cold and final. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. Turn back immediately. This is your only warning." Thexlar's crew looked at her, waiting for orders. The Vrelian pilot's hand hovered over the controls, ready to retreat. But they had come so far. They were finally here, on the edge of the greatest mystery in the galaxy. She opened a channel to the human ship. "We mean no harm. We are on a peaceful research mission. We only wish to understand." The human voice cut her off. "Final warning. Turn back now or you will be eliminated. You have 10 seconds to comply." The words hung in the silence of the bridge. Eliminated, not captured. Not arrested, eliminated. Thexlar looked at the dark void ahead, filled with whatever secrets humanity was protecting. Then she looked at her crew, seeing their fear and uncertainty. She thought about all the ships that had disappeared trying to cross this border. She thought about Ambassador Hieron's warning. But she also thought about the blank space on the map, the mystery that had consumed her thoughts for years. She thought about her duty as a cartographer, her species' sacred commitment to knowledge and exploration. 10 seconds, she said to her pilot. The countdown had already begun in her mind. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to choose survival over curiosity. But Thexlar had never been good at listening to fear. "Full speed ahead," she ordered. The cartographer's hope surged forward, plunging deeper into human space. Behind them, the human patrol ship activated its weapon systems. And somewhere ahead, in the darkness beyond their sensors, something ancient and terrible stirred from its sleep. Captain Ji-Won Kim watched the alien vessel on her screen with tired eyes. This was the 3rd unauthorized entry this month. Before that, they had gone 6 months without incident. But lately, more and more aliens were trying to breach the border. Curiosity, she supposed, or arrogance. Maybe both. "Target their engines only," she ordered her weapons officer. "Deploy gravitational nets. I want them stopped, not destroyed." The crew of the HSS Sentinel moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this many times before. Intercept, disable, detain, deport. It was routine work. Usually, Lieutenant Dae-Hyun Lee, her tactical officer, checked the alien ship's trajectory and felt his stomach drop. "Captain, they are heading towards Sector 7 Gamma. If they maintain this course for another 12 minutes, he did not need to finish." Ji-Won knew what Sector 7 Gamma meant. It was a red zone, maximum containment priority. If the aliens reached it, they would not just die. They would wake something up. Something that had been sleeping for decades. "Increase speed to maximum," Ji-Won commanded. "Get me Admiral Park on secure channel, now." Aboard the cartographer's Hope, Thexlar felt a mixture of fear and excitement. They had crossed the boundary. They were inside human space. And despite the patrol ship chasing them, they were still alive and still moving. The Cylonian engineer, Keishan, studied his instruments with growing confusion. "These readings make no sense. The energy signatures throughout this region are unlike anything I have seen. They are artificial but not technological. It is as if the space itself has been contaminated." Thexlar moved to his station and examined the data. He was right. Strange energy patterns covered this entire sector, forming what looked like a massive grid, and at each intersection of the grid sat a human military installation, broadcasting powerful fields into the surrounding space. "What are they containing?" she whispered. Before anyone could answer, their ship shuddered violently. The gravitational net from the human patrol ship had caught them. Their engines strained against the force, but it was useless. The cartographer's hope came to a stop, held in place by invisible bonds. The human ship moved alongside them. Thexler watched through the viewport as armored figures moved across the space between vessels. They were coming aboard. Captain Jiwon entered the alien ship with her security team. They moved quickly, weapons raised, but Thexlar noticed something strange. The humans were not looking at her or her crew. They were scanning the walls, the floors, even the air itself, as if searching for something invisible. Containment scan complete, one of the soldiers reported. No infections detected? The ship is clean. Jiwon released a breath she did not know she had been holding. She lowered her weapon slightly and turned to face Thexlar. You are lucky. Another 10 minutes and I could not have saved you. Saved us from what? Thexlar demanded. Jiwon did not answer. She ordered her soldiers to restrain the alien crew and prepare to tow their ship. You will be taken to a processing station. After that, you will be deported. You are never to return. Consider yourselves fortunate. Thexlar wanted to protest, to demand explanations, but the look in the human captain's eyes stopped her. It was not anger she saw there. It was exhaustion, deep, bone-weary exhaustion, as if this woman had been fighting a war for far too long. Border Station Tychon 9 was massive, a military fortress orbiting a neutron star. As Thexler and her crew were escorted through its corridors, she studied everything. The walls were lined with scanners. Every door required genetic authentication. Armed guards patrolled constantly. But what struck her most was the atmosphere. These humans did not act like conquerors or isolationists. They acted like survivors. Every person she saw carried a weight, a burden that pressed down on their shoulders. They moved with purpose but also with constant vigilance, as if danger could appear at any moment. The aliens were placed in a detention area with transparent walls. Thexlar could see out into a large observation room where human officers worked at various stations. While her crew rested, she studied the humans, trying to understand them. She noticed a data terminal near her cell, partially accessible through a maintenance panel. Using her thin forelimbs, she managed to access some of the station's basic files. Most were locked, but she found fragments of information that made no sense. References to containment breaches, infection protocols, zones of silence. And then she found a casualty report from 30 years ago, an entire colony world called New Jakarta, 20 billion people listed as quarantined and sterilized. The reason given? Total reality corruption event. Reality corruption event. What did that even mean? Admiral Hyunwoo Park arrived at the station 12 hours later. He was older than Captain Jiwon, with gray hair and lines carved deep into his face. He met with Jiwon in a private office overlooking the station's main hangar. How much did they see? He asked without greeting. Enough to ask questions, Jiwon replied. The Krelthian cartographer is intelligent. She accessed some of our files. She's already trying to understand what we are hiding. Hyunwoo was silent for a long moment, staring out at the hangar. We could erase their memories. Remove everything they saw here. The Galactic Council would investigate, Jiwon said carefully. Memory erasure leaves traces. They would know something happened. She paused. Admiral, maybe it is time. Maybe we should tell them the truth. Hyunwoo turned to look at her, his expression hard. The truth? That we have been fighting a war against things that should not exist? That we have lost 50 worlds and over 100 billion people trying to keep the threat contained? That the only reason the galaxy still exists is because we are willing to sacrifice everything to maintain the quarantine? He shook his head. They are not ready. None of them are ready for that truth. Before Jiwon could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. A voice echoed from the intercom system. Containment breach in Sector 9 Delta. Reality distortion detected. All personnel to combat stations. This is not a drill. Hyunwoo and Jiwon exchanged a single look. Then they were running toward the command center. In her cell, Thexlar pressed against the transparent wall, watching as human warships began launching from the hangar in rapid succession. But the ships were not heading toward the galactic border. They were heading deeper into human space, toward something within their own territory. Lieutenant Daehyun had been assigned to guard the alien prisoners. He stood near Thexlar's cell, watching the mobilization with an expression of deep worry. Thexlar saw his face and felt a chill run through her body. "What is happening?" she asked him. Daehyun looked at her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then something seemed to break inside him. Perhaps it was exhaustion. Perhaps it was the weight of too many secrets. Perhaps he was simply tired of being silent. "There are things in our space," he said quietly. "Things that should not exist. We call them the Voidborn." Thexlar felt her breath catch. "What are they?" "They are not aliens," Daehyun continued. "They are wounds in reality itself. Places where the universe breaks down and something else bleeds through. They do not follow physical laws. They corrupt everything they touch. Matter, energy, time, even thought itself." He turned to look at the launching warships. "We have been fighting them for 400 years, since before we reach the stars. And if we fail, if the containment ever breaks completely, they will consume this entire arm of the galaxy within decades." Thexlar stared at him, trying to process what she was hearing. It seemed impossible, insane. But looking at the human lieutenant's haunted eyes, she knew he was telling the truth. "And that is why the map is blank," she whispered. Daehyun nodded. "We do not keep you out to protect our territory. We keep you out to protect you from what we are fighting. The blank space on your map is not hiding our weakness. It is hiding the monsters, so the rest of the galaxy does not have to face them." Daehyun took Thexlar to an observation deck where they could see what was happening in Sector 9 Delta. The view made her wish she had stayed in her cell. Space itself looked wrong. The stars were bending, twisting into shapes that should not be possible. Colors existed there that her eyes could not properly process, making her brain hurt when she tried to focus on them. And at the center of it all was something that defied description. It was not a ship. It was not a creature. It was a place where reality had broken down completely, where the laws of physics simply stopped working. Matter flowed like water, time moved in circles, and something vast and hungry stirred within the chaos. Human warships surrounded the anomaly in a precise geometric pattern. They were not firing conventional weapons. Instead, each ship projected beams of pure white light that seemed to push against the distortion, trying to force reality back into its proper shape. "Reality stabilization fields," Daehyun explained quietly. "They force the universe to remember what it should be. It is the only way to fight the Voidborn." Thexlar watched as two human vessels suddenly disappeared. Not destroyed by weapons or explosions, they simply ceased to exist as if they had never been there at all. A third ship began showing signs of distortion. Through the viewport she could see its hull aging and rusting, then becoming new again over and over in rapid succession. "They are infected," Daehyun said, his voice tight. "The corruption has reached them." A moment later, the infected ship exploded. But it was not the Voidborn that destroyed it. It was another human vessel, firing a weapon directly at their own ship. "They killed their own people," Thexlar whispered in horror. "They had no choice," Daehyun replied. "Once the corruption spreads to living beings, it can jump to other minds. If that ship had gotten close to the others, the entire fleet would have been infected. 3,000 lives sacrificed to save 30,000. That is the mathematics of fighting the Voidborn." The battle continued for hours. Thexlar could not look away, even though every moment filled her with dread. The humans fought with desperate efficiency, their movements coordinated across dozens of ships. They were clearly experienced at this. They had done it many times before. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the distortion began to shrink. The reality stabilization fields were working. The impossible colors faded. The twisted space slowly returned to normal. And the thing at the center, the presence that had made the air feel heavy with wrongness, went silent. "Is it dead?" Thexlar asked. "The Voidborn do not die," Daehyun said. "They can only be contained, sealed, kept dormant. But they never truly die, they wait. And eventually they always try to break free again." Captain Jiwon returned to Border Station Taikon 9 8 hours later. Her face was pale with exhaustion. She had lost 12 ships and over 3,000 personnel. Thexlar saw her in the corridor, moving like someone who had aged years in a single day. Admiral Hyunwoo was waiting in the command center. He stood before a massive star chart showing all of human space. Each star system was marked with a color: green for stable, yellow for monitored, red for active containment. There were far more red zones than green. "We cannot keep doing this forever," Jiwon said quietly. "We have to," Hyunwoo replied. There is no other choice. The Krelthian knows now. Lieutenant Lee told her everything. Hyunwoo closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Then we have a decision to make. Do we silence her, or do we trust her with the truth? The next day, Dr. Minji Choi arrived at the station. She was a xenobiologist and containment specialist, one of humanity's leading experts on the Voidborn. She had been studying them for 20 years, trying to understand what they were and how to fight them more effectively. Hyunwoo had called her to help make the decision about Thexlar. After reviewing the situation, Minji had a suggestion. Show her, Minji said simply. Show her what? Ji-won asked. Everything. Take her to Research Facility 7. Let her see what we are really fighting. Let her understand the full scope of the threat. Then ask her to keep our secret. Not because we force her, but because she chooses to. Hyunwoo considered this. And if she refuses, if she decides the galaxy needs to know, then we were wrong about her character, Minji replied. But I do not think we are. The Krelthians value truth, yes, but they also value wisdom. Give her the information she needs to make a wise choice. 3 days later, Thexlar found herself aboard a human transport ship, traveling deeper into human space. Dr. Minji had explained where they were going and why. Thexlar had agreed immediately. She wanted to understand. Ambassador Vryn, the Selonian from her crew, came with her. As an empathic being who could sense emotions across vast distances, his testimony would carry weight with the Galactic Council if Thexlar chose to reveal what she learned. As they approached their destination, Vryn began to feel something strange. His energy form flickered with distress. There is something ahead. I can sense it, but it is not like any consciousness I have ever felt. It is not emotion. It is hunger. Pure, endless hunger. That is Subject Zero, Minji explained. The first void-born entity humanity ever encountered. It has been contained for 400 years, but it is still active, still conscious, still trying to break free. Deep Space Research Facility. 7 was a massive station built around a dead star system. As they docked, Thexlar could see the elaborate security measures. 7 layers of reality stabilization fields surrounded the station. Armed warships patrolled constantly. Every person who entered or left had to pass through multiple scanning systems. Minji led them to an observation chamber. Through thick, transparent barriers protected by multiple force fields, they could see it. Subject Zero. It was impossible to describe. Thexlar's mind kept trying to make sense of what she was seeing, but nothing fit. Geometry that could not exist. Colors that had no place in the normal spectrum. Matter that was solid and liquid and energy all at once. Time flowing backward and forward simultaneously. And through it all, she felt the hunger Vryn had sensed. An endless desire to spread, to grow, to consume everything and remake it into more wrongness. This is what we have been containing, Minji said quietly. There are 47 documented entities like this throughout human space. Some are dormant. Some are active. All of them want to break free, and every single one could destroy the galaxy if it escaped. Thexlar could not look away. How did this happen? Where did they come from? We do not know, Minji admitted. Our best theory is that this region of space is flawed somehow, a wound in the fabric of reality from some ancient catastrophe. The Voidborn are not invaders. They are what happens when the universe tries to heal itself but cannot. They are infections in the cosmic order. How long have you been fighting them? Vryn asked, his voice trembling. 400 years, Minji said. They appeared in our solar system before we even had faster-than-light travel. Mars was consumed in 3 days. Venus became uninhabitable. We barely saved Earth. Since then, we have been fighting to keep them contained, to prevent them from spreading beyond our space. She turned to face them directly. We have lost over 100 billion people in this war. 52 entire colony worlds. Generations that have known nothing but fighting against an enemy that cannot be reasoned with or understood. And we can never stop. The moment we let our guard down, the moment the containment fails, the Voidborn will spread across the galaxy like a plague. Thexlar felt her legs trembling. She had wanted to know the truth. She had demanded to understand why the map was blank. Now she knew, and the knowledge was almost too heavy to bear. Why keep it secret? She asked. Why not ask the galaxy for help? Because the Voidborn are drawn to consciousness, Minji explained. The more minds that know about them, The more beings that think about them, the stronger they become. If the entire galaxy learned of their existence, if billions of beings started focusing their attention on this region of space, it would make the infestation exponentially worse. Knowledge itself makes them more powerful. She paused, letting that sink in. We do not keep the galaxy out to protect ourselves. We keep them out to protect them. The blank space on your map is not hiding our shame or our weakness. It is hiding the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced, and we are the ones standing between that threat and everyone else. Thexlar looked at Subject Zero again, at the impossible thing trapped behind 7 layers of force fields. She thought about the 47 other sites like this scattered across human space. She thought about the billions of humans who had died fighting this endless war, and she understood. Finally, truly understood why the map was blank. The memorial world was a barren planet at the edge of human space. Nothing grew there. Nothing lived there. It existed for only one purpose: to remember the dead. Admiral Hyunwoo brought Thexlar there the day after her visit to Research Facility 7. He wanted her to understand not just what humanity was fighting, but what they had lost. 52 monuments stood on the surface, arranged in a vast circle. Each one was carved from black stone and stood hundreds of meters tall. Each one represented a colony world that had been lost to the Voidborn. Thexlar walked among them with Hyunwoo, reading the names carved into the stone. Billions upon billions of names. Every single person who had died on each lost world was recorded here, their memory preserved forever. They stopped at the monument for New Jakarta, the world Thexlar had read about in the casualty report. 20 billion names covered its surface in script so small it was almost impossible to read. This was one of our most beautiful worlds, Hyunwoo said quietly. Art, science, culture. 20 billion people living peaceful lives. Then a void-born entity manifested in the planet's core. We had 6 hours to evacuate. We saved 14 million people. The rest, he touched the stone gently. We had to sterilize the entire star system, collapse it into a singularity. Because if we had not, the corruption would have spread to neighboring systems within weeks. He turned to face Thexlar. This is why we keep the galaxy out, not because we fear you, not because we want to hide our technology. We keep you out because we have had to make this choice 52 times. We have had to decide how many billions of lives are acceptable losses to prevent total annihilation. And we will not let the rest of the galaxy face that same choice. Thexlar felt tears forming in her compound eyes. Her species did not cry often, but standing among these monuments to unimaginable loss, she could not help it. I am sorry, she whispered. I did not know. None of us knew. That is the point, Hyunwoo replied. You were never supposed to know. The greatest gift we can give the galaxy is letting them live in ignorance of what lies within our borders. At that moment, Hyunwoo's communication device activated. His face went pale as he listened to the report. When he finished, he looked at Thexlar with an expression of deep anger mixed with resignation. A Vrelian military fleet has entered our space, he said. 12 ships heavily armed. They ignored all warnings and proceeded into Sector 4 Theta. Thexlar felt her heart sink. The Vrelians were a warrior species, proud and aggressive. They had always viewed humanity's closed borders as an insult. What will you do? Try to save them, Hyunwoo said grimly. Though I fear we may already be too late. Commander Gorthak of the Vrelian Space Force was pleased with himself. He and his fleet had successfully penetrated human space, evading their patrols and avoiding their defensive installations. He had proven that humans were not invincible, that their mysteries could be challenged. He transmitted a triumphant message back to Vrelian territory, claiming victory over human arrogance. His crew celebrated. They had done what no one else had managed in 200 years. Then they entered a region of space where no stars shone. At first, Gorthak thought it was just empty space. But his instruments began showing impossible readings. Space was wrong here. Twisted. Broken. And something was waking up. The void-born entity dormant in Sector 4 Theta had been sleeping for decades, sealed and contained by human technology. But now fresh consciousness had entered its domain. New minds to feed on, new reality to corrupt. It reached out with hunger. Gorthak's fleet began experiencing reality distortions. The hulls of ships started aging rapidly, then reversed, becoming new again. Time inside the vessels moved at different speeds in different rooms. Crew members found themselves in multiple places at once. Their consciousness split across impossible dimensions. Gorthak tried to retreat, but his ships would not respond. They were no longer ships. They were becoming part of the Voidborn, extensions of its impossible existence. The warriors who had come seeking glory were now weapons being turned against the galaxy itself. His last transmission was a scream of terror and confusion, broadcast across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Then silence. Back on the memorial world, alarms blared from Hyunwoo's device. Red alerts. Maximum priority. A massive containment failure was unfolding in Sector 4 Theta. The Voidborn entity there had fully awakened, and it had new weapons. 12 Vrelian warships now serving as vectors for reality corruption. Hyunwoo looked at Thexlar. This is what happens when outsiders enter our space unprepared. This is why we have absolute rules. This is why we can never compromise. He activated his command authority, mobilizing every available vessel. Hundreds of human warships began converging on Sector 4 Theta. They had to contain this breach before it spread, before the corrupted Vrelian vessels could reach the galactic border. I need to return to command immediately, Hyunwoo said. But first I must ask you something, Cartographer Thexlar. You have seen what we are fighting. You understand why we keep our secrets. Will you help us maintain the silence? Thexlar looked at the monuments around her, at the names of billions of dead. She thought about Subject Zero, trapped for 400 years. She thought about the human soldiers who fought and died in battles no one would ever know about. If I tell the galaxy, she said slowly, if I reveal what you are hiding, what happens? The Galactic Council will investigate, Hyunwoo replied. Millions of beings will focus their attention on human space. Scientists will want to study the Voidborn. Philosophers will debate their nature. Every mind in the galaxy will be thinking about them, wondering about them. And that attention, that consciousness focused on the Voidborn will make them stronger. The containments will fail faster. The breaches will happen more often. Within a generation, the infestation will spread beyond our ability to control it. He met her eyes. The blank space on your map exists because ignorance is safer than knowledge. We need the galaxy to forget we exist. We need them to fear the boundary enough to stay away. That is the only way we can protect them. Thexlar was silent for a long moment. Everything she believed in, everything her species valued, told her that knowledge should be shared, that mysteries should be solved. That truth was sacred. But standing among the monuments to 100 billion dead, she realized something. Some truths were too dangerous. Some knowledge did more harm than good. Some mysteries should remain unsolved. I will keep your secret, she said finally. I will return to the galaxy and tell them nothing. The map will remain blank. Hyunwoo released a breath he did not know he had been holding. Thank you. You do not know how much this means to us. I think I do, Thexlar replied, looking at the monuments again. You have sacrificed everything to protect people who do not even know they need protection. You fight a war no one acknowledges, bear a burden no one shares, and face horrors no one else can imagine. The least I can do is honor that sacrifice with my silence. Hyunwoo extended his hand in the human gesture of respect. Thexlar touched it with her forelimb. For a moment, human and alien stood together among the monuments to the dead, united in their understanding of what needed to be done. Then Hyunwoo was running back to his ship, racing to coordinate the containment of Sector 4 Theta, and Thexlar was left alone among the names of the dead, carrying the weight of knowledge that would change her forever. She touched the monument to New Jakarta one last time, feeling the cold stone beneath her limb. 20 billion names, 20 billion lives sacrificed to save countless others, and not one person in the wider galaxy knew their names or honored their sacrifice. Except her. She knew now, and she would carry that knowledge in silence for the rest of her life. It was the least she could do. Above the memorial world, human warships continued to launch, heading toward another battle in their endless war. Captain Jiwon was among them, returning to the fight. Lieutenant Daehyun was preparing to coordinate the tactical response. Dr. Minji was already analyzing the new Voidborn manifestation, searching for weaknesses. The war would continue. The sacrifices would continue. The blank space on the galactic map would remain blank. and the galaxy would sleep peacefully, never knowing about the monsters in the dark, or the humans standing guard against them. The battle for Sector 4 Theta lasted 3 days. It was the largest containment operation humanity had mounted in 50 years. Over 200 warships fought to seal the breach before the corrupted Vrelian vessels could spread the infection beyond the sector. Thexelar watched from border station Tychon 9, unable to look away. She saw ships destroyed. She saw reality itself bend and break. She saw human soldiers sacrifice themselves without hesitation to protect systems their enemy would never see. Captain Jiwan commanded the inner containment ring aboard the HSS Sentinel. The corrupted Vrelian ships had become nightmare constructs, existing in multiple dimensions at once, firing weapons that broke the laws of physics. Several human vessels were caught in temporal loops, their crews experiencing death over and over again. Dr. Minji coordinated the scientific response from Research Facility 7. She identified a weakness in the Voidborn manifestation. It was still young, still learning how to exist. If they could overload it with contradictory reality fields, they might force it back into dormancy. The plan required perfect synchronization across hundreds of ships. One mistake and the containment would fail. The entity would fully manifest. The entire sector would become a permanent wound in reality, spreading outward at the speed of thought. Lieutenant Daehyun coordinated the synchronization from the station. His hands moved across the control systems with desperate precision, compensating for relativistic effects, quantum uncertainty, and the impossible physics of fighting something that should not exist. The moment came. 200 ships activated their reality stabilization field simultaneously, creating a geometric prison of natural law around the Voidborn entity. The universe screamed. Space itself seemed to crack. Time fractured and reformed. Then slowly, impossibly, the entity collapsed inward. The corruption receded. The twisted space returned to normal. The thing that had awakened went back to sleep. The cost was terrible. 47 ships destroyed. 16,000 casualties. Commander Gorthak and his entire fleet were irrecoverable, their matter incorporated into the entity's structure. But the containment held. The galaxy was safe. For now. 1 week later, Thexelar and her crew were escorted to the galactic border aboard a human diplomatic vessel. Admiral Hyunwoo personally oversaw their departure. Before they separated, he met with Thexelar one final time in a private chamber. "What will you tell them?" he asked. Thexelar had spent the past week thinking about this moment. "I will tell them that human space is defended by security protocols we cannot understand. I will tell them that humanity has made their boundaries absolute and will enforce them without exception. I will tell them that I attempted to cross, was intercepted, and was deported with a warning never to return." She paused. "I will not tell them why. They will ask questions," Hyunwoo warned. "Then I will tell them the truth," Thexelar replied. "That some knowledge is dangerous. That some curiosities should remain unsatisfied. That the blank space on the map exists for a reason, and we should be grateful it does." She looked at him directly. "Humanity is not hiding from the galaxy. Humanity is guarding it, and perhaps the greatest service is one that goes unrecognized." Hyunwoo extended his hand. Thexelar touched it with her forelimb. "Thank you," he said simply. "No," Thexelar replied. "Thank you for the burden you carry so the rest of us do not have to." 3 months later, Thexelar stood once again in the great mapping hall on Kelthros Prime. The holographic display filled the chamber with its glowing representation of the galaxy, and at the edge the blank space remained. Dark, empty, unmarked. She had presented her report to the Galactic Cartography Institute. She described her incursion into human space, the interception by human patrol vessels, and her deportation. She showed her sensor logs, carefully edited by human intelligence to remove any reference to the Voidborn. "So you learned nothing?" the Institute director had asked, disappointed. "On the contrary," Thexelar had replied. "I learned that humanity's boundaries are absolute for reasons they will not disclose. I learned that their secrecy protects something far more important than territory. And I learned that sometimes the most important discoveries are the ones we choose not to pursue." The council had been unsatisfied, but they accepted her report. The incident was filed away. The blank space remained blank. Life in the galaxy continued as it always had, with most beings never knowing how close they had come to disaster. But Council Prime Elisar, the ancient leader of the Galactic Council, had summoned Thexlar to a private meeting. The Etherian studied her with eyes that had witnessed centuries of history. "You know more than you are saying," Elisar stated. "Yes," Thexlar admitted. "And you have chosen to remain silent." "Yes." Elisar was quiet for a long moment. "I was present when humanity made first contact with our council, 200 years ago. They were different then, traumatized, desperate. They asked for only one thing, that we respect their boundaries without question. In exchange, they would participate in galactic trade and diplomacy. But their space would remain theirs alone." She looked at Thexlar. "I have spent 2 centuries wondering what they hide. Now you know, do you not?" "I know enough to understand why they hide it," Thexlar replied. "And I know enough never to ask them to explain." Elisar nodded slowly. "Then you are wiser than I feared. The galaxy will continue to wonder. Let them. Wonder is safer than knowledge." Now standing before the galactic map, Thexlar looked at the blank space with new eyes. She no longer saw an absence or a mystery. She saw a shield, a sacrifice, a promise kept by humans who would never receive recognition for their service. A young Krelthian apprentice approached her, compound eyes bright with the same curiosity Thexlar had once felt. "Master Thexlar, why does the map end at human space?" "What are they hiding?" Thexlar considered her response carefully. She thought about the monuments on the memorial world. She thought about Subject Zero trapped for 400 years. She thought about Captain Jiwan and Lieutenant Daehyun and Dr. Minji and Admiral Hyunwoo and all the other humans fighting their endless war. "They are not hiding anything from us," she said finally. "They are hiding something for us, and we should be grateful. But do you not want to know what it is?" the apprentice asked. Thexlar looked at the blank space one more time. She saw the void that represented humanity's sacrifice, their terrible knowledge, their willingness to bear a burden that would break any other species. And she made her choice. "No," she said softly. "I do not. Some questions are better left unanswered. Some maps are better left incomplete. That is the most important lesson I have learned in all my years as a cartographer." The apprentice looked confused but did not press further. Thexlar turned away from the map and walked out of the chamber. She would continue her work, mapping the known galaxy, but she would never again attempt to map that one blank space. Some mysteries were meant to remain unsolved. Across the galaxy, aboard the HSS Sentinel on patrol along the human border, Captain Jiwan received a report. The Krelthian cartographer had kept her word. No new investigations into human space were being planned. The galactic media was reporting her mission as a failure. Lieutenant Daehyun joined her on the bridge. "Do you think they will ever understand? The rest of the galaxy, I mean. Will they ever appreciate what we have sacrificed?" "I hope they never do," Jiwan replied. "If they understand, it means we have failed. It means the Voidborn have broken free, and the galaxy has learned firsthand what we have been fighting." She turned to face him. "Our mission is not to be heroes. It is to be forgotten. As long as the map stays blank, as long as the galaxy wonders but does not investigate, as long as they fear the boundary enough to stay away, we have succeeded." She looked out at the stars, at the thousands of systems in human space, each one monitored, defended, paid for with generations of sacrifice. Somewhere out there, billions of beings are living their lives. They laugh, they love, they create. They raise families and build civilizations, and they do it all without knowing that their existence depends on us maintaining the vigil. "That is enough," Daehyun said quietly. "Yes," Jiwan agreed. "It has to be enough." The HSS Sentinel continued its patrol, moving along the invisible line that separated human space from the rest of the galaxy. Behind it, 47 containment zones held 47 void-born entities. Hundreds of defensive installations maintained their constant watch. Thousands of scientists searched for better containment methods. Millions of soldiers stood ready to fight. The war would continue. The sacrifices would continue. The blank space on the galactic map would remain blank, and humanity would stand guard, forever vigilant, forever silent, forever protecting a galaxy that would never know their names. That was the burden they had chosen to bear. and they would bear it until the end of time, or until the Voidborn finally consumed them all. But not today. Today the containment held. Today the galaxy was safe. Today the blank space remained blank, and that would have to be enough. The end.